She woke up gasping. Her chest tight. Her arms frozen at her sides. The weight of something unseen pressing down on her. The room was still, the air thick, unmoving. Then, she saw it. A figure. At the foot of her bed. Motionless. No features. No expression. Just standing there, watching. Her eyes darted to the clock. 3:12 a.m. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Her body refused to move, trapped in place, helpless. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure was gone. Nothing but the quiet hum of the night remained. She told herself it was just sleep paralysis. A trick of a restless mind. But the next morning, something was different. A deep, purple bruise had bloomed across her wrist. As if someone had held her down. She stared at the bruise in the pale morning light. Tracing the edges with her fingertips, she tried to remember if she had hit something in her sleep. A restless turn, a sudden movement, there had to be an explanation. But the shape. It wasn't random. It wasn't the scattered markings of someone twisting beneath the sheets. It was distinct. 5 individual marks. The clear impression of fingers. Nights passed. The figure didn't return. She convinced herself it had been a dream, some cruel trick of the mind. And then, it happened again. She woke in the same frozen state. Eyes darting. Chest rising in sharp, shallow breaths. The clock. 3:12 a.m. The figure was closer this time. Just beyond her reach. Standing. Waiting. And then, it moved. Not fast. Not abrupt. A slow, deliberate shift forward. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she squeezed her eyes shut. If she couldn't see it, maybe it couldn't see her. And just like that, it was morning. The room was empty. The door was locked. But something was different. Another bruise. This time on her ankle. As if something had tried to pull her. She told herself it was stress. Lack of sleep. An overactive imagination. But deep down, something gnawed at her. A feeling she couldn't shake. She wasn't alone. Every night, the same thing. She'd wake suddenly, body locked in place. A presence looming at the edge of the room. Never moving at first. Just standing. Watching. 3:12 a.m. Always. The bruises multiplied. First on her arms. Then her legs. Faint impressions of fingertips. Some deep enough to ache beneath her skin. The worst part. She never felt it happening. She only saw the aftermath. She started locking her bedroom door. Bolting the windows. Checking every night before bed. It didn't make a difference. In the mornings, her door would be open. Just an inch. Just enough to make her question herself. Had she forgotten? Had she left it ajar? Or had something else opened it? The bruises worsened. Her body ached, as if she'd spent the night struggling against something unseen. But there were no signs of a struggle. No torn sheets. No scratches. Just the quiet, undeniable proof etched into her skin. She needed answers. So she did something desperate. She set up a camera. She placed it carefully. Angled it toward her bed. A single, blinking red light in the dark. That night, she barely slept. The fear of what she might find in the morning kept her eyes open until exhaustion took over. And then, morning came. She reached for her phone with shaking hands. Pressed play. For hours, nothing happened. Just the stillness of a sleeping figure beneath the covers. But then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the footage glitched. A flicker. A static distortion that lasted less than a second. And when the image cleared, she wasn't alone. A figure stood in the room. Not at the foot of the bed this time. Closer. Beside her. She barely breathed as she scrubbed through the footage. Frame by frame, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The figure didn't move. It didn't shift or twitch. It just stood there. Completely still. Except Its head was tilted, leaning down toward her. Then, at 3:14 a.m., another distortion. A 2-second black screen. When the image returned, the figure was gone. But she wasn't alone in that room. Because something else had changed. Her blanket had been pulled slightly downward. As if something had been holding it. She didn't sleep the next night. She couldn't. By morning, she packed a bag. Left everything behind. She never went back. Weeks later, she got a call from the new tenant. "Hey. I know this is weird, but did you ever hear breathing inside the walls?" She didn't answer. She hung up the phone. Blocked the number. But that night, she woke up suddenly. Gasping. The air heavy. Her body frozen. The clock on her nightstand glowed in the darkness. 3:12 a.m. Some nightmares don't end when you wake up. What would you do if you found out someone had been watching you sleep? Would you run? Would you stay? Or would you pretend you never saw it? Tell me, in the comments below.